Hoover struggles with the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover chose to take the do-nothing approach when it came to dealing with the Great Depression. He believed that the economy was okay and that it was simply going through one of its natural troughs. He stressed the business cycle and believed that a series of expansions would follow. His philosophy on government was to foster cooperation, not to force it. He believed in rugged individualism and believed that direct relief should be handled on a small scale. In other words, the poor should receive help from charities, from their town governments and their state governments, not the federal government. He believed that doing so would create a huge bureaucracy. He did try to help. He brought together business, labor, and banker leaders, and also asked businesses not to lay off workers. He set up a small organization to raise funds for charities, but didn't do anything officially. Americans reacted to the Great Depression in several ways. Farmers burned their crops and blocked roads to stop food shipments in order to keep supply low and prices high. Americans began to mock President Hoover. The homeless used newspapers as blankets and called them Hoover blankets. Large shanty towns were built outside major cities and became known as Hoovervilles. People would walk with their pockets hanging out and called those Hoover flags. Hoover eventually would take some action. He had Congress allot $800 million for public works, including the beginning of the Hoover Dam. He also created the Federal Farm Board, which tried to raise crop prices by helping farm cooperatives buy up the surplus temporarily. This would keep the supply low and prices high. He also created the National Credit Corporation. This loaned money to small banks to hold off bankruptcy. He also passed the Federal Home Loans Bank Act, which lowered mortgage rates and allowed farmers to refinance so that they wouldn't lose their land. He also created the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. This allowed Congress to give money to banks, insurance companies, and large industry. This is a prime example of trickle-down or supply-side economics, the idea being that if you gave money to the large institutions, it would find its way to the common people. World War I veterans had been promised a $1,000 bonus. This was done through the Patman Bill. Congress did not pass it. Between 10 and 20,000 of these vets and their families camped out in Washington, D.C. in support of the bill, and 2,000 of them stayed on when the bill failed. The U.S. Army was sent in to drive out these 2,000 protesters. They used gas, killing a baby and blinding a small child. All of these things led to Hoover's loss of popularity with the American people.